Hey, what's up everyone? My name's Chris Winter and today I'm going to take a look at a fantastic little lens, the Panasonic 12-32mm. Now I've been using this lens on my tiny little micro four thirds camera, the GM1, for around about a year now, and really do think it's incredible just how small these lenses have become. And if you haven't seen it yet guys, make sure to check out my top 5 best pancake lenses list. I'll put a link in the description box below. This one comes in at number 5, so go check out the other lenses which come in above it. To start off with, let's take a look at the build quality of this lens. Now, the very first thing that you'll notice about this lens is just how small it is. Seriously though, this is an incredibly small lens with a pretty decent zoom range. And the lens itself is actually pretty light too, but that's not to say it doesn't feel like it's built well. It's got a nice metal mount on the back here, but interestingly enough, there's actually no focus ring on the front. And you know what, to me, that's a little bit of a pity. But the reason for that is that it's designed for use with cameras with a good touchscreen autofocusing system like the GM1. Now to use this lens, you first have to twist it around about halfway, and then it'll be usable. Now it does get a little bit bigger, but it does keep it compact when it's in your pocket. And other than that, it's a pretty basic build. There's no focus window, there's no lens hoods, and there's no weather sealing. And it does come with a very small little lens cap, which I thought was pretty cool. Now speaking of the angle of this lens, it actually starts at 12mm, which is actually pretty wide. On a micro four thirds camera like the GM1, which I'm using today, that equates to around about 24mm on a full frame body, which is pretty wide. So just so you can see, this is at 12mm, and we can zoom all the way to 32mm. Now it's not the biggest zoom range, but for a little pocket lens, it's pretty impressive. Now this lens has a variable aperture of f3.5 to f5.6, which is nothing really to write home about. So getting some really nice shallow depth of field and some nice bokeh is pretty difficult to do. But that's not to say it's impossible. I've actually been able to get some lovely out of focus areas in some of my photos which I've taken, and I've got to say that it's actually a very clean bokeh and it looks really quite lovely. Now it's definitely not in the same league as my other favourite micro four thirds lens, the 20mm f1.7. That's not to say you can't get some nice out of focus area with this lens. Just hit it on the 32mm end and you can get a little bit of bokeh. Now in terms of getting up close with this 12-32mm lens, it's got a minimum focus distance of 20 centimeters, which means you're not going to be able to get really close up if you want to do some really macro shots. So as you can see here, we're on the long end of the lens and you can get relatively close. But if you're looking to do a lot of macro work, there are definitely some other lenses to look for. Now let's talk quickly about autofocus. I've actually been really impressed with the autofocus on this lens. And again, I think it really needed to have good autofocus on this lens because it doesn't have that manual focus option just in case your autofocus conks out. So I am really happy that it is good. As you can hear, the autofocus is incredibly quick and very snappy. And because we don't have a very shallow depth of field, this is actually some of the best autofocus I've seen on a micro four thirds camera. Now video autofocus isn't as good as stills autofocus performance with this lens, but that could also be down to the GM1, which doesn't have fantastic video autofocus, especially compared to something like my Canon 70D, which is filming me now. But because the 12-32mm doesn't have a super shallow depth of field at any of its focal lengths, you can actually get some really nice and usable footage. Plus, I think it really looks great. It's very sharp. Now one thing to note is that this lens here is actually pretty difficult to find. Because it's designed specifically for cameras like the GM1 and the GM5, not a lot of retailers will actually sell it separately. So it currently sells for around about $299 US at B&H, but if you do check out Amazon, they've currently got it on sale for $185, which is quite a lot cheaper. So you definitely need to look around if you want to pick up this lens on the cheap. I'll put a link in the description box below if you want to check out some of the reviews on this lens. So it's all well and good talking about this lens, but let's now take a look at a few of the sample images of the 12-32. So I took a few of these during a dark winter in Norway and Sweden, and I was actually really impressed with just how the images turned out. It's really quite sharp for most photos, and color reproduction was actually superb. Again, we're not getting a very shallow depth of field, and you wouldn't expect it with a f5.6 aperture, but it was really producing some great shots. There's next to no vignetting, only a little bit on the wider focal lengths, and chromatic aberrations were really not there. Flaring was slightly apparent, but it's nothing that I don't really like. It really is a sharp little lens, and you know what? The best thing about this lens is that it's so small that it's pretty much always there, and when you pair it up with a very small camera like the GM1, it allows you to take fantastic shots at pretty much any time. So there you go guys, that was my review of the Panasonic 12-32. Now if you did like this review, I'd love it if you leave a thumbs up because that's always appreciated. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't done it yet, and also check out the links in the description box below if you want to pick up one of these or see the sample images that I took. Hope you guys have a fantastic day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.